All right. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the November 14th, 2024 regular meeting of the Park Board of Commissioners. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Monica, can we have a roll call, please?
President Gibson?
Here.
Vice President Ruffing?
Here.
Commissioner Ansier?
Here.
Commissioner Jacks?
Here.
Commissioner Janner?
Here.
Commissioner Risvold?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to open the Truth in Taxation public hearing on the district's proposed 2024 property tax levy.
Move to open the public hearing for discussion on the 2024 property tax levy.
Second.
Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. A quorum being present, I will now call to order the public hearing of the 2024 property tax levy. A notice of this Truth in Taxation hearing was published in the Daily Herald on November 6, 2024, in accordance with the requirements of the Property Tax Code, and a notice in compliance with the Open Meetings Act was also prepared and distributed in accordance with all legal requirements. Property tax revenues represent the largest revenue source for the district and funds about 56% of the district's budget. This year, the district is proposing a levy totaling $29,065,615, which is a 7.63% increase over last year's extension. The district's tax levy request will increase to account for inflationary pressures on the cost of operating the district, to provide for rising inclusion service costs and ADA capital-related improvements, and for outstanding debt to realize interest cost savings. The CPI percentage applicable to this year's tax levy under PTEL is 3.4%, and the balance is necessary to account for new construction. If the estimated new construction does not materialize, the DuPage and Will County clerks will automatically reduce the levy to the appropriate level. The purpose of the hearing is to give the public an opportunity to be heard with regard to the planned 2024 property tax levy request. Once public comments have been received, the board may immediately comment or reserve its comments to when the ordinance is formally presented for board consideration. The hearing is now open to questions and comments from the audience. Do we have any questions or comments from the audience? No? All right, hearing none, do we have any comments from board members? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the Truth in Taxation public hearing on the 2024 tax levy and return to the regular business of the meeting.
Move to close the public hearing and return to the regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to matters from the public on general topics. Are there any matters from the public?
We do not have any.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to updates and reports. I will start with Riverwalk Commission. We met yesterday. It was Chairman Pat Kennedy's last meeting. He's been on the board for probably about 7 years, and I realized we haven't had an update since a prior meeting where the PDC chairman also had his last meeting. So I want to thank Jeff Bryant and Pat Kennedy for their years of service on the Riverwalk. They've overseen and brought about a lot of change that's made the Riverwalk and our whole community better. So we're grateful for their service. And Tiffany Pico, works on the Riverwalk and updated us about the great work happening, getting ready for winter. Sled hill fencing is up. I believe the boards for the ice skating are up, and staff planted bulbs for spring, which blows my mind and makes me hopeful on these dark, cold days. So that is the update. I brought out my phone because the next Riverwalk meeting will be December 11th at 7:30 a.m. at the Municipal Center. We'll move on to Finance Committee.
No report.
All right, Legislative Committee?
No report.
All right, Parks and Rec Committee.
Hey, Parks and Rec Committee met this evening prior to tonight's meeting here at 5:45 here at Fort Hill. Had some brief updates for some of the upcoming new business, including a donation for the synthetic turf to be added to the improvements at Nike Sports Complex, as well as the all the projects that are coming up for the next year, including that one. Updates from golf that we will be moving towards getting electric cars for Springbrook, so that was really a really good thing there. And then updates from all the different departments to discuss the renovations of Nike Park, as I mentioned before, and upcoming parks that are going to be opening next year, which will bring us up to 140. Is that correct? Yeah, that's pretty cool. For the holiday season, Pennies for Pies is going to be coming. Is started. Basketball teams continue to be getting full and needing to add more teams for certain age groups. Different holiday programs and meals will be resuming as well. Sprinkler installation will be going on at Springbrook at the end of the month. And golf continues to make records with their 90,000 rounds that were so far this year. And they're still open, so we still have more to get. Winter prep is going on in the parks. You mentioned the bulb planting, so they're doing restroom updates as well as controlled burns that are needed. And marketing just discussed the IRPA presentations that will be coming up in January for that conference, as well as a potential virtual trophy case. So the next meeting of Parks and Rec will be on December 12th at 5:45 p.m. here at Fort Hill.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Anseer. I will move on to the President's report. As we move from fall into winter and the weather turns cold and the days grow shorter, we see a shift in how our community interacts with parks and recreation. In the fall, our trails, sport fields, outdoor facilities are bustling with activity. However, as the temperature drops, demand shifts to winter-friendly options. Indoor sports, fitness classes, ice skating, sledding, and other recreational options that define winter for so many of us here in the Midwest. Staff has been busy preparing our parks for the winter. As I mentioned before, setting up sledding hills and safety barriers, preparing ice rinks, boards down at Centennial Park, and meeting the seasonal landscaping and maintenance needs, like planting bulbs for spring. We hope as the weather changes, our community remembers and takes advantage of the activities, events, and facilities we offer at the Park District to promote healthy lives, minds, and community throughout the whole year and throughout every changing season. As this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving, I'd also be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank all of the amazing people on our staff who work so tirelessly to provide high-quality parks and programming for our community. Tonight, we have several significant items on the agenda, including our proposed tax levy estimate and next year's budget. We'll also review the results of our indoor space needs assessment, a study that has given us meaningful insights into how we can determine, prioritize, and invest our resources to meet community interests and need for additional indoor spaces. Again, I want to thank everyone who has worked so hard to bring together these resources for tonight's meetings. I know it's a lot of work. We appreciate the early notice on these documents. They're really important so that way we can make informed decisions as a board. So we appreciate all the thoughtfulness and attention to detail. And I'd like to thank the members of our public who come to our meetings, engage with us throughout the year, and help us make these important decisions that set the course for the future of our park district. So, thank you. I will pass it on to Executive Director Wilson for his report.
Thank you, President Gibson. This holiday season, the Naperville Park District invites the community to assist families in need by participating in several charitable initiatives. Through November 22nd, we are accepting donations, including small change for the Pennies for Pies campaign. This annual collection helps fund the purchase of pumpkin pies for Loaves and Fishes Community Services, which will be distributed to families this Thanksgiving. Donations are accepted online or at several Park District facilities. Additionally, our Park Police have launched the Park District's Toys for Tots campaign, collecting new, unwrapped toys for area children. Toys are being collected at several different Park District facilities through Saturday, December 14th. The Fry YMCA and Naperville Park District will continue an annual Naperville tradition of providing seniors and families in need with a meal on Christmas Eve day. Over the last few years, this program included the delivery of meals to individual homes due to the pandemic. This year, in lieu of deliveries, the program will return to the traditional in-person luncheon on Christmas Eve day. The Community Christmas Luncheon is funded entirely through donations received from the community. Learn more about the event and donate at napervilleparks.org/donate. And lastly, looking ahead to Giving Tuesday on December 3rd, the Park District invites donations for our fee assistance program, which helps residents in need enjoy the benefits of recreation programs and experiences. Although the district accepts fee assistance program donations year-round, we appreciate your support in giving the gift of recreation this holiday season. Learn more about the program and donate at napervilleparks.org/fee assistance program. Springbrook and Naperbrook golf courses will host their annual cross-country turkey shoot golf tournament the weekend before Thanksgiving. And I believe that Director Carlson mentioned that this event has been happening for 40 years at the golf courses. This is a very popular event which features a 9-hole, 5-person scramble format. includes lunch and a prize turkey for each player. A registration lottery will be held this Saturday, November 16th at Naperbrook to determine the field of participants for both events. Visit golfnaperville.org for details. The Winter 2025 Digital Program Guide will be available on the Park District's website on Wednesday, November 27th. The forthcoming edition features information on a variety of winter programs, as well as winter break and spring break camps. Residents can begin registering for winter session programs on Monday, December 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Additionally, registration for the spring season of Naperville Youth Soccer and the Naperville Premier Soccer League begins on Tuesday, December 10th at noon for girls and Thursday, December 12th at noon for boys. And then finally, the 2025 Community Job Fair, co-hosted by the Naperville Park District and Kids Matter, is scheduled for Saturday, January 4th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Fort Hill Activity Center. High school and college-age students and adults of all ages can speak directly to representatives of Naperville area businesses, including the Park District, about a variety of employment opportunities. Additionally, attendees can participate in mock interviews and have their resume reviewed at this free event. Additional information on our programs, events, and facilities, and other Naperville Park District news can be found at napervilleparks.org. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Executive Director Wilson. We'll move on to the 2025 budget presentation.
All right. This evening, we want to provide our annual overview of the upcoming budget for 2025. This is something that, as we work to develop the budget, we work off of the 3-year financial plan that was presented and approved by the board earlier in the year. But we also have several guides that we work from in the overall budget development. That being maintaining the district's financial standing. As you recall, we received the AAA bond rating earlier this year, very important for the Park District to maintain. We continue to take care of the district's assets, our parks, facilities, all that is available to the community. Maintain affordability of programs and services that we provide to the community with our registration fees, memberships, and other service fees. Continue to champion innovation, do things differently and better. You've seen some of that with the introduction of technology out in the parks with autonomous mowing, changing up some of our maintenance practices to be more efficient, and this year's budget also includes a number of different software updates to help with overall efficiencies within the organization. And then implementing recommendations from the Indoor Recreation Space Needs Assessment, which we'll talk a little bit later in this meeting in a bit more detail. This year continues to be another historic year for the Park District. This was similar to the message that you heard last year in 2023, as that was a historic year with participation levels. 2024 continued that in many ways. Several of our facilities and programs experienced record levels of participation. Right now, we're on track to serve over 61,000 program participants in 2024. That's the second highest number of participants in the last 20 years, last year being the record-setting year at about 63,000 participants. Right now, we're projecting with golf to end the season at nearly 93,000 rounds combined between the two golf courses, which is the highest that we have on record. Fort Hill continues to grow, over 8,000 memberships with Fort Hill Fitness, and overall use of the facility is highest on record since the facility opened in 2016. And our open gym and track use both have seen significant increases. Centennial Beach attendance this summer, we were 11% above the average with 143,000 visitors that came to the facility between Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend. We've also seen increased use of the fee assistance program. Through the month of October, we're actually up 29% as compared to the entire year for 2023. So that represents about $9,000 in additional fee assistance that has been issued to families in need to be able to participate in recreation programs. And then overall increased participation in special recreation programming with WDSRA. Inclusion services is one of the very large services that we coordinate with WDSRA. And for example, this summer alone, when we compare to 2023 had 317 inclusion participations within the Naperville Park District programs. This year, we had over 390 inclusions, which represents about $124,000 that was needed to be able to provide those support services. We are very fortunate to have a community that is extremely supportive of the Park District. We have a number of various sponsors, businesses within the community that support the Park District in a number of ways, as well as individuals. And what you see here are a number of projects this year that we were very pleased to be able to roll out to the community in partnership with organizations. The DuPage River Sports Complex synthetic turf infield with Naperville Little League, Knock Park, the parking lot expansion, which I know that many of the pickleball players that utilize Knock Park certainly appreciate and enjoy. That was done in partnership with School District 203. Stanford Meadows and Brighton Ridge Park shoreline restoration projects, a partnership with DuPage County, and we're working with them on yet another partnership to complete shoreline restoration along the portion of the Riverwalk. The Riverwalk Prairie Nature Garden, a partnership with the city as well as the Riverwalk Foundation, which was added this year just west of Centennial Beach. The Rothermel Family Skate Facility at Centennial Park, due in part to a generous donation from the Rothermel Family Fund of DuPage Foundation. The Frank J. Russ Pavilion at Knock Knolls Park, which we held a ribbon cutting for this fall. Again, the result in part due to a very generous donation from the Frank Russ Trust. Our partnership with Wintrust and the naming of the Wintrust Athletic Field at Knock Park, as well as celebrating the Marie Todd practice facility earlier this year, and the recognition of Marie's years of service to the Park District and to the community. This is a slide that we like to include each year when we are looking at budget and looking at the overall value provided to residents in the community. This is something that we've heard from residents in many of the past surveys. In 2022, the community survey, very high satisfaction levels with the Park District and what's provided. In 2023, the city conducted a community survey. There again, the Park District stood out. I believe we were ranked the second highest Park District ratings among 316 communities that their consultant had worked with. As well as this year, and when we get into the indoor recreation needs assessment, the survey that was conducted this year, again, very high value. So these are some of the amenities that we provide to the community. A couple of that have grown this year, the number of shelters that have been available, as well as increasing playgrounds as we've brought new parks online.
Okay, it would not be a budget presentation until we start talking numbers. So overall, the 2025 proposed budget is about $53.2 million. We like to break it up into three categories. Our operating budget, and that encompasses everything that we do aside from capital and debt. So we're looking at about a $36 million operating budget for the year, capital budget of $13.4 million, and excuse me, and debt service that we're paying down of $3.7 million. As we talked about earlier, how important property taxes are, 56% supporting all the funding that we have. It still remains our largest revenue source and is much valued and appreciated, and also taken with a lot of care to make sure that we spend those tax dollars very carefully. Our second main source of revenue is charges for services or program fees, and that encompasses, golf fees, any fees for programs. So those two sources for the Park District make up just about 85% of our total funding for a year. Okay, so of course we're going to talk about property taxes because it is our largest source. The 25 budget anticipates that we will still remain about 5% of a resident's property tax bill, and that has been consistent over time. The average, we're estimating the average Park District resident will pay an estimated $442. And as Brad had mentioned earlier, when we worked on the plan, the 3-year plan that was approved by the board this past June, where we're making assumptions, we had an estimate of $440 when that plan was approved of what an average taxpayer would pay in Naperville for a home value of about $470,000. So what does that mean? Again, and I just want to reiterate that we are working with estimates. Every homeowner's bill will be different depending on their assessment, but on an average base, we're estimating about a $28 increase over what a taxpayer would have paid last year. Let's break that $28 down to different components. So for operations and all our capital improvements, it's about $14 of that $28 increase. For special recreation, inclusion services, and ADA capital improvements, we're looking at an $8 increase over last year. And debt service, which, if you'll recall, we recently refunded our 2015 bonds for the purpose of saving interest money. If you remember, it's like refinancing your mortgage. So we had what was our outstanding debt, what was left. We got it at a lower interest rate. And in order to do that and put it through and take advantage of our extension base, that produced about $550,000 in savings over time on that one issue. That represents a $4 increase of that $28. And lastly, if you recall, when we were talking about the financing plan and the restructuring of that debt, we also talked about the availability of our debt service base to do a supplemental debt service levy for our 2020 bonds. And that represents about $2 of that $28 increase. Let's just drill down a little bit further for one of maybe a year where we have a larger increase than normal, and that is for our special recreation levy. If you remember, that levy provides for our membership in WESDRA. It also provides inclusion services and also ADA-related capital improvements. So every year we get together, Eric's team who does the capital plan, and we ask for what we need in that year to provide those services. In some years, the rate will be lower. Last year, we asked for 2.74 cents to fund those special recreation needs. This year, we're asking for 3.03 cents, which is higher, but not to the max. So because we are a non-home rule community and a park district, for all of our taxes, we have caps that we have to live within, that we can't levy over. 4 cents is the maximum for that rate. We're asking for 3.03 cents for that levy. So that $8 is typically higher than it's been, but that's based on inclusion services. As Brad had mentioned, the increase in inclusion services and also the increase for WESDRA staff to be able to provide those inclusion services. So those reasons are why you're seeing that additional or a little bit more asked for that levy line item. Okay, this story just continues. It's escalating costs, things that we're seeing to provide. We always talk about the vehicle and equipments. You've heard a lot about that over the years. We thought we would drill it down this year a little bit to just stuff that we do every day and how costs have increased, and yet we're still limited to what we can ask through the levy for these things. So just plants and flowers, we're seeing a 13% increase. Some of the things that we've done to help is redoing our flower beds. We're doing things more efficiently where it takes less time, and maybe we're trying to do it even a lower cost of, doing natural areas in certain places, not only because it's a good practice, but also because we're dealing with increasing costs, 13% there. All of our garbage bags, gloves, everyday things, 11%. Janitorial supplies, 4 to 10%, along with our refuse services, 8%. Mower, we had to throw in one piece of equipment there. We're still seeing 9% increases, 9% over last year. And then, all of our, I'll highlight the bus transportation costs. We've talked about this. I know you've heard this before, but we have a very robust day camp program. The costs of busing that transportation is close to 25% higher where it's been. We're balancing that with trying to keep programs very affordable and keep them at a high quality. So that's something that's been a challenge for us. And then tech service contracts, all of our IT backbone and infrastructure, we're still seeing 10 to 15% increases on those contracts. Just getting a little bit an update on where we've been. You've seen some of this when we do our mid-year presentation. So for Centennial Beach, what we're proposing in 2025 is an increase in not only non-resident daily fees and memberships. So resident rates we're proposing to keep the same. Obviously, safety and is one of our main concerns. We continue to prioritize that as we look to put the budget together. Recruitment and retention of staff has been better for us this year after a lot of years of effort, but we really work hard at it. So by the end of December, when winter breaks start happening into January, the team that work at the beach are going to be working on recruitment and getting people staffed up so we're ready for next year. And again, one of the goals when we look at the beach is with everything of lessons to umbrellas to comfortable chairs is to provide quality experiences and for new and returning guests. For this facility, the building we're in, Fort Hill, we are not proposing any fee increases at all for membership. We've had the same membership fees and have been able to hold that flat since this facility opened in 2016. We know that, and we're going to talk about this later with the indoor space, that we have fitness classes that are filled, open gyms that are filled. I will highlight one area that we haven't talked a lot about in Fort Hill, and that is the increase in personal training. It has been a significant increase in training for this facility, 70% higher than last year, or 59,000 in that one revenue piece that makes up this whole building. And then obviously we're going to be talking about further indoor space later in this meeting. As far as programs, we continue, as Andrea had mentioned in Parks and Rec, about working with the basketball program, accommodating wait lists, of managing participation is always a focus, and everyone has done really well last year, and I know we'll do the same this year of getting everyone accommodated. We have the property tax where we have some increases. We also increase certain fees for programs, and every year we look at our program fees and the cost to provide those programs, to run those programs. So in certain cases, I'll use day camps as a perfect example. We'll see a fee increase in day camps to help offset those rising transportation costs. So we don't blanket increase fees, but we look at a very individual level. And then lastly, and it's not last on the list, but we're continuing to evaluate program offerings to reflect a diverse community and to try and address that. We're going to talk about that at the indoor space presentation also. Going over to golf. Again, we're managing high demands there, providing excellent service. We are going to be increasing select greens fees and memberships, and also, and that's on the non-resident side for those increases. And then lastly, other than the electric golf carts, we're going to be updating the golf master plan. This plan was last updated in 2018, pre-COVID. The golf industry and market is so different than it used to be. So it's time to refresh that plan to help us figure out, the new course and having a plan moving forward with golf. Nope, that's fine. Okay, so let's look at kind of future, where we've been and where we're headed. So since we like to look back, and since 2015, when we talk about taking care of what we have and how that's an important goal, we've spent $131 million since 2015 on capital investment in the district. Just alone, we have a 10-year plan. We have a whole policy just to how to develop and process our 10-year plan that Eric and his team, and as the board, you're all very aware of. We have over $93 million in the next 10 years that we need to look to fund, just basically taking care of what we have. We do have a dedicated source for capital funding, and that is a piece of the property tax levy. About 71% of total funding of capital comes through property taxes. Drilling down to our 2025 budget, we have a $13.4 million capital budget. And just a couple examples of one renovation project actually happening on the south side of Naperville is Commissioner's Park. So we're going to plan for that project to renovate some ball fields, backstops, and fencing. New LED lights for the cricket pitch area, and a big take care of what you have project is to replace an irrigation field pump and shed that will be added at Commissioner's Park. Nike Sports Complex is going to get a lot of nice improvements. Synthetic turf fields for 3 of our fields, a new water feature, a challenge course, a new loop trail that will be asphalt, a new playground, a renovated playground, there's one there already, but a new picnic shelter. So you're gonna hear Nike talked about a lot. We're going for an OSLAD grant, and also Brad had mentioned the Little League also contributing as a partner. I think you did that for Nike. So, a lot going on with capital. Between just the operating and the investment that we have to take care of a system that is so large and provides such a variety of opportunities for the community to enjoy. We keep our eye on this all the time, and the AAA rating is really important also because when we issue debt for capital, which we need to help maintain the system, that AAA rating will save taxpayer dollars on interest costs, among other things. And then here's just a list of some other capital projects that we're planning. We've got all those playground renovations at Columbia, Crowler, Meadow Glens, Rose Hill, West Greens, White Eagle, and Willow Gate Square. That's probably a typical number, it seems, recently, of the number of playgrounds that we're renovating each year. I already mentioned Nike Sports Complex. We have the Polo Club Park and Fairlane Farms Park developments. And then we're going to be doing a lot of work at the Ron Ory Community Garden Plots, site improvements. We actually had a lot of community input actually for all of these projects to get them accomplished.
And as we look ahead to next year, the major district goals that we'll be focused on, first one being the implementation of recommendations from the Indoor Recreation Space Needs Assessment. That's something that we'll speak in a little bit more detail as we get into a bit further into tonight's meeting. Updating the district's strategic plan. Hard to believe that it was just a couple years ago we put together the strategic plan that runs through 2025. Next year we will be working on a plan that would cover the years of 26 through 28. Updating the district's ADA transition plan, something utilized especially by our planning team as we're looking at capital projects and improvements to the various parks and facilities. Accomplishing inclusivity and engagement team district-wide initiatives. This is a new team that was formed this year to really increase our overall presence and visibility in the community and really developing the Park District as a welcoming brand for the community. Continuing to invest in attracting and retaining staff across the organization. This is one that we have had a focus on the last few years. It's something that is so important for us to, as an organization, focus on, because what we provide to the community, the maintenance of parks, facilities, the programs that we provide, is so dependent upon having the staff in place and the right staff in place to be able to provide the quality programs. So that is something that we will continually focus on. Developing a plan to address outdoor district-wide signage. And when I say that, that is really focusing in on our informational signage and rules signage that we have out in the parks, and really getting a handle on how we can improve upon that out in the various park facilities. Assisting with hosting the 2025 Naperville Healing Field of Honor at Rotary Hill, something that we will be working with several community partners on to bring back next November around Veterans Day. And then completing agency preparations for CAPRA reaccreditation in 2026. And we recently learned that our self-assessment, which means all of the materials that we have to provide for that reaccreditation, is actually due in January of 2026. So this truly is a 2025 project, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, a lot of great work by staff, and certainly we'll work to meet those requirements for maintaining that accreditation. So in conclusion, as we look at the 2025 budget, really it was developed with the same principles that have put us in the positive financial position that the district is in, to be able to provide great services, great parks, and great facilities to the community. It supports maintaining that highest bond rating as possible. Again, extremely important for us as we move forward. It continues to take care of what we have and who we have. There are a large number of facilities and parks in the community that have a lot of recreational amenities, and so this really has structured it to where we can continue taking care of what we do provide. Maintains the affordability and the quality of our programs and services. Director Stanish talked a little bit about we look at program fees and facility fees, and it's not something to where we just apply blanket across the board increases. We look at what programs can handle, what makes sense, and certainly want to look at the expenses associated with those programs. And then it begins to prepare the district to start implementing recommendations from the indoor recreation space needs assessment. So at this point, we'd like to open it up for any questions from the board.
All right, thank you so much, Director Stanish and Executive Director Wilson. Board members, questions, comments? Commissioner Jacks?
Okay, I do have one. So the one thing that stands out to me about you talk about the $28 increase is that the $8 for the special, for WDSRA and the special needs like that. But can we get more details on that? I know it's for some ADA and something. Can we get some more detail about what that $8 is going to cover?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No?
Well, with the WDSRA stuff, when we've talked about that before, that's just the cost of the people who do the programming, right? Like who help people in the programs, the guides, or and those sorts of things, right?
So
cost of those.
There's really two main pieces of it. So we belong to WESDRA, and so we pay a membership and for inclusion services that they provide. So that's a known 2% of EAV is what that amount comes to. Where it varies year to year is the inclusion services that we get in that membership. We're exceeding that because there's a higher demand for those services and they cost more to provide. So we're allocating more dollars even above our membership fees that we pay. And then the other big piece is capital. And that we have a list that Director Schutz puts together with his team of our capital improvements and what the ADA component of those are. So, for example, we could be renovating a park, and we don't put through the whole cost of the park, but a certain percent of that park that is ADA related runs through this special recreation levy. So we can provide a list of those capital projects, and we also have our inclusion dues that we get through WESDRA.
And with the inclusion services, so we're seeing two things really happening here. It's the increase in the number of inclusion participants a significant increase that we're seeing within our programs, as well as the increasing costs. So WDSRA, much like everyone else, is having to increase the hourly wages, whether that be because of minimum wage requirements or simply for the recruitment of staff and to be able to have enough staff to be able to provide those services. So that coupled with the increased number of participants that are utilizing inclusion services is driving up those costs.
Great. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Janner?
First, Brad, I want to thank you and Sue for arranging the individual meetings with commissioners. That was very helpful to be able to ask some questions there. And likewise, for both of you and the entire staff, I think the budget, as always, is exceptionally well done, very thoughtful. I don't think there's a lot of fat in the budget. We don't see a lot of consulting or big personnel increases or things like that. I mean, it's very well done. With that being said, there's like about 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and of that part, there's people that are not even covering their monthly expenses with their earnings. So I just can't in good conscience support the size of the tax increase this year. And I know tonight we're just looking at the estimate, but people are really struggling, families are really struggling. If you look at the amount of people that are taking advantage of the fee assistance program that was reported earlier, as a government agency, if times are tough, we can just tax more. However, individual families don't have the option to just reach out and get more money. So while $28, on average might not seem like that big of a deal, there's a lot of families in our community that are really, really struggling. And so for those reasons, it's unlikely I'll be able to support the budget as is.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Janner. I would like to note, I know in the presentation, and we often note this, that our two biggest sources of revenue are property tax levy and program fees. But I also would like to acknowledge that staff has made a significant effort this year for the additional revenues. I know I saw a quarterly report from the sponsorship team that our sponsorship levels are higher, I believe, since they've ever been. There were a lot of creative solutions with the new parking lot over by the pickleball courts at Knock to do cost-sharing agreements with 203 on the Wintrust fields. So I just want, for the public's benefit as well, to recognize that staff looks for other creative cost-sharing partnerships, grants, and revenue sources, and I really appreciate those efforts. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? No? Then we can move forward with the resolution to establish estimates of funds to be raised by taxation for the 2024 levy.
Move to approve Resolution 24-08, establishing estimate of funds to be raised by taxation for the 2024 levy year.
Second.
All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
No.
Commissioner Risvold?
Yes.
President Gibson?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Yeah, we'll move it.
Move to approve the September 24 Treasurer's Report, which includes Commissioners' expenses totaling $695 for attendance at the 2024 NRPA Conference.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Risvold?
Yes.
President Gibson?
Yes. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Monica, would you please read the consent agenda?
Item 8.1, approve October 2024 disbursements in the amount of $2,569,894.24. 8.2, approve October 2024 disbursements made through the Bank of America Purchasing Card Program in the amount of $307,826.22. 8.3, approve October 2024 FinTech disbursements in the amount of $6,645.50. 8.4, approve October 2024 customer refunds in the amount of $1,774. 8.5, approve October 24th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes. 8.6, approve the 2025 annual parks and golf tree trimming, tree removal contract to Groundskeeper Landscape Care LLC in the amount of $71,611.50. 8.7, authorize the executive director to execute an agreement with OpenGov Inc. for computerized maintenance management system software. 8.8, motion to waive competitive bidding and extend the existing contract with Havenshine Technologies, Inc. for the 2025 mowing season and add the following parks to that contract: Monarch Park, Kings Hill Park, White Eagle Park, Heatherstone Park, and Country Lakes Park, all at the reduced per acre rate of $25.80 as per the Havenshine offer to extend and amend dated September 18th, 2024. 8.9, approve renewal of 2025 mowing services contracts with Mark One Landscape, Inc. at an estimated cost of $23,967.85 for the North Region contract, $42,544.34 for the Central Region contract, and $45,898.11 for the South Region contract. 8.10, approve the purchase of one 2024 Ford F-250 XL 4x4 pickup truck from Rush Truck Center for $50,659 through the district's membership in the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative. 8.11, approve the purchase of one 2024 Ford F-150 XL 4x4 pickup truck from Curie Motors for $38,270 through the district's membership in Suburban Purchasing Cooperative. 8.12, approve the purchase of one 2024 John Deere 4066 utility tractor at a cost of $45,537.53 and one 2024 John Deere 5075 utility tractor at a cost of $43,160.54 from AHW LLC for a total expenditure of $88,698.07, procured through the district's membership in the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative. 8.13, approve the 2025 independent contractor agreement from karate instruction with Illinois Shotokan Karate Club. 8.14, approve the 2025 independent contractor agreement for youth sports instruction with All Star Sports Instruction, Inc. 8.15, approve the 2025 independent contractor agreement for youth sports instruction with Kids First Sports Safety, Inc. 8.16, approve the 2025 independent contractor agreement for swim instruction with Naperville Aquatics, Inc. 8.17, approve Resolution 24-07, notice of the schedule of regular meetings of the Naperville Park District Board of Commissioners for the 2025 calendar year. 8.18, approve Resolution 24-10, include compensation paid under an IRC Section 125 plan as IMRF earnings. That is all.
Thank you, Monica. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately? Hearing none.
Move to accept consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.18.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Risvold?
Yep.
President Gibson?
Yes.
Move to approve consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have no unfinished business, so let's move on to new business. Indoor recreation space needs assessment.
Well, thank you, President Gibson. As mentioned during the budget presentation, we were going to get into and report out on the indoor recreation space needs assessment conducted by the Park District this year. So one of the district's major goals in 2024 is to complete an assessment of indoor recreation space needs and to develop and adopt a plan based on need and support for further indoor amenities. Beginning in 2023, and actually throughout 2024, the Park District worked on conducting the assessment with the assistance of Williams Architects, Pros Consulting, and the University of Illinois Office of Recreation and Park Resources. And I also have to mention, a big thank you to several members of staff from the recreation, planning, marketing, and finance teams for their extensive work on the project. There was quite a bit of work that went into this throughout the course of the year. The assessment is intended to guide the district in meeting the recreation needs of the community while assisting staff and the board in determining the district's strategic direction regarding indoor space. And as we look at the project goals, there were a number of them. Looking at our existing facilities, where to invest, prioritize where to invest our resources, looking at current utilization, assisting with creating baselines for peak facility use, our capacities, hours of operations, et cetera. Identifying gaps and inefficiencies within current indoor facility use and making recommendations on how to improve. Identifying gaps between current indoor facility inventory and the space needed to address not only current, but also what the future growth is anticipated to be. Identifying gaps in sizes of indoor spaces needed to address current needs as well as the future growth. Assist the district in confirming the community's interest and need for additional recreation space, as well as community support for future indoor space. And then really formulating a plan with recommendations for both the current as well as for the future. So the assessment is comprised of several areas, and the full report, over 200 pages worth of the full report, that along with a smaller snapshot report, which is kind of a high-level overview, and this presentation will be placed on the project webpage starting tomorrow. So it'll be available for the public and anyone to be able to review and take in the information. But really it was structured to have an executive summary. We have the demographics and trends analysis, similar providers, quite a bit of community input, which we will share and discuss this evening, as well as space utilization analysis and recommendations that come from that. As we look at the demographics and some of the key findings, so Pros Consulting uses data from the U.S. Census Bureau and ESRI. ESRI is the largest research and development organization that's dedicated to geographical information systems, or GIS. And ESRI estimates a 5-year projection based off of what the Census Bureau information is. And then Pros, they utilized a straight line regression to forecast 10 and 15 years from now what the anticipated population is expected to look like within the community. And this first one, when we look at age segments, you can see that the 55 plus population is expected to grow to represent over a third of the community, 37% of the total population. So that is an area where we have seen growth. We have also seen quite a bit of participation within our existing programs from the 55 plus population, and we expect that to continue to grow. One of the other demographic areas to highlight is the change in diversity within the community. So right now, you can see that white alone residents represent or are estimated to be about 62%, which is similar to the national average of 60%. The largest population growth is within the Asian population. They're at 23% higher than the national average right now, and that is expected to grow over the course of the next 10 to 15 years. So again, showing that the overall diversity within the community is projected to continue to grow for the next several years, and for the Park District, for us to be able to understand and identify what those interests are. Key findings coming out of the demographics, that there is that still growing population, that we need to invest and maintain our programs and facilities to account for that. That we do have an aging population, aging in place, and that we need to focus on opportunities for the 55 plus age populations when it comes to our programming and future facilities. And that our offerings need to reflect an increasingly diverse population. And so we'll need to evaluate and really look at shifting our program offerings over time. And I'll turn it over to Director Coates on some of the trends.
Okay, so looking at some of the trends that were found in the assessment, As you can see, in 2023, we experienced the greatest number of active Americans, so that's a very positive thing in recreation in the field that we're in. Fitness, sports continues to be the #1 means of exercise. Our top 3 sports, basketball, golf, and tennis. And no surprise here, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States. All of these, as you can see, it really fit with what we're seeing here at the Naperville Park District as well. These are all very high demand programs that we have currently. Swimming is another sport that's enjoyed by individuals. I think the popularity of it is it's diverse. Anybody can enjoy it, and it's a lifelong sport. So we're seeing a lot of, that's a very high demand and popularity. Okay, this chart reflects the Market Potential Index. This is also from ESRI, and this shows the likelihood that adults will participate in an activity. Basically, the blue bars are the Naperville Park District. The red is the national average, and you can see that the Naperville Park District, the likelihood of people participating is way above the average. Probably all of these, currently we're meeting quite a bit of the needs except for the swimming area, which we'll get into further down the road. That is the one area that, with having Centennial Beach, that's our main means of supporting aquatics. So we'll discuss more of that as we go. Okay, similar providers. We did look at the different providers that are in the area. We took basically the approximate radius from the center of Naperville, which we used the Knock Park area, Garden Plot area as the center. We did a blend of both private, public, school districts. We had about 51 providers that we compared, looking at fitness, indoor aquatics, gym, turf, tennis, and activity and recreation areas. Okay, of these, obviously fitness probably had the largest category of similar providers, with aquatics being the lowest, less common I should say, but still very highly valued. Gym and turf spaces, we have partnerships with the school districts, so those are in high demand. And racquet courts, which we're seeing with the pickleball interest, we have a lot of that the private sector out there. With the proximity of all these similar providers, it certainly emphasizes the high demand for a variety of recreation activities within the area. And I'll turn it over to Director Schutz.
Thank you very much. So good evening. So community input was probably was the most important aspect in developing this indoor space needs assessment. And by the numbers, we conducted many ways to reach out to residents, as well as with the ways, we wanted to make sure that we're getting high quality, qualitative and quantitative data. And so with the interviews we conducted with the stakeholders, we had 10 of those by the numbers, 84 total participants participated in focus group meetings. We had 2 open house events as part of this process, and that was part of a questionnaire type style, so people could provide their input online. The statistically significant survey, we had 290 completed responses, as well as the open portion of the survey, 1,540 responses. So just like we did for the 2022 Community Interest and Opinion Survey, we made sure when we gathered the data that we completed the statistically significant survey first, and then we opened it up for the rest of the community. So just drilling into this a little bit deeper, looking at our key leader interviews, we met with the 10 community key leader organizations, and that includes representatives from the city of Naperville, the school districts of 203 and 204, as well as the Fry Family YMCA and so many more. But some of the key takeaways from this portion of the initiative is the focus on indoor aquatics of all types, diverse recreational programs to accommodate the existing population. Engagement with the support from residents is essential. We hear that quite often. The location accessibility to indoor recreation is an important consideration, especially when we're talking about drive time. We hear a lot from our residents that going from one facility to the next or various programs and services, it's really hard to do a lot in one day. And the community partnerships should continue to be utilized and expanded, something we do and work on a daily basis. So the focus groups we conducted in March. We had one group meeting in March and one in April. We had 4 sessions for each focus group day here at the Fort Hill Activity Center. And some of the key takeaways, and this is really important that we identified from the focus group meetings, is while residents support the expansion of indoor recreation spaces across the community, there was a fear that building a new facility away from the center of town will lead to fracturing the sense of community and that we have developed here at the Fort Hill Activity Center. Residents want to ensure indoor recreation spaces are flexible to accommodate changing recreation sports trends and activities across the lifespan. And some residents were worried about the long-term operational expenses of a new facility, but these residents seemed amenable to the initial capital costs. So capital investment, there seems to be an interest and openness to it. They just were concerned about the long-term financial sustainability. Can that be maintained by the Naperville Park District? So the open house events, we conducted the first one actually at the Frontier Sports Complex with the Kite Fly event on June 2nd. And then we had a second open house with various session times here at Fort Hill Activity Center on June 11th. With the online format, we collected 402 responses. And the key takeaways here were to maintain and expand indoor recreation programs and opportunities, a lack of available gymnasium and gymnastic spaces, and a need for indoor aquatics. And then lastly, the community survey. As Executive Director Wilson mentioned, we work with the Office of Recreation and Park Resources along with Williams Architects, but this group from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, led the survey tool. The statistically significant portion, that tool was sent out to 6,000 households throughout the Naperville community. We received 290 surveys back, as well as the open survey that opened up after that with 1,540 surveys. So overall, we received an extensive amount of input from our community that led to the recommendations that will be discussed tonight.
And so with that, we're going to share and talk through some of the survey results that we received back. And again, the full number of responses from actually both surveys are included in the full document that'll be on our website. But one of the areas we wanted to highlight tonight was the response to the overall Park District performance and value. Overall, the highest responses came back that parks are important to their quality of life, that the Park District enhances the sense of community, and that residents feel safe when they're using Park District facilities in parks. With this one, those who, the respondents that disagreed or strongly disagreed with the statement that there are enough indoor recreation facilities in the community. So that one really stuck out when you look at the yellow and the red bars represented in that graph. The next area to highlight is looking at indoor facility interests. And you'll see, and no surprise, this is actually consistent with what we see with our community interest and opinion surveys when it comes to outside walking trails, is that walking and jogging track has the greatest amount of interest among residents. Health and fitness space then right behind that. And then we get into a number of indoor aquatic type facilities and overall interest in the community for those types of spaces, as well as gym courts, which we know are very popular based upon our programs here at Fort Hill. When we look at indoor recreation space needs, respondents responded back whether or not they felt that certain spaces were met within the community as far as meeting those overall needs. The yellow and the red that you see within the bars are for those areas where respondents felt that these types of facilities are either not met or not met at all within the community. The top three that within this area really revolve around indoor aquatics, that residents indicated the greatest need for indoor aquatic facilities. And I just want to mention, as we're working through these slides, these are the responses to the statistically valid survey. We will show some of the open-ended responses and comparisons a little bit later on. We also asked a question about willingness to pay. We wanted to get an understanding from the community about, is there that interest in paying to have these types of facilities available within the community? As we worked through the budget presentation and Director Stanish presented on the amount of capital projects as well as capital needed to continue to take care of what we have and continue providing the great parks and facilities that we have, We know that the funding we have available for capital really needs to be directed to those types of facilities and maintaining that. When we talk about new indoor recreation space, and especially space that might include indoor aquatics, that is something that we would need to take to the community and have support from the community to be able to do. So we, in the question in the survey, had 3 scenarios, asking respondents would they be willing to support a similar type facility to what is here now with the Fort Hill Activity Center, just in a different location with no pool. A facility very similar to Fort Hill, but with a pool, and also a facility similar to Fort Hill with synthetic turf. And you can see on the respondents' responses, the highest amount of yeses that were received back as far as willingness to support was for the activity center that included indoor aquatics. And we saw very similar results with the open public survey as well. We ask about desired location. If the Park District were to do a new facility in the future, what area of the community would be supported? And South Naperville, as you can see, 28% was the highest response that we received back. And that is something that we heard pretty consistently throughout the community input from the survey, from speaking with focus groups and the open houses, is there is that interest in having something that's a little bit closer to homes, especially in South Naperville, from what Fort Hill Activity Center is now. Fort Hill would be considered more north to central portion of the community. Yeah.
How do you define south? Is it south 75th Street, or what is south? What does that mean?
We, in the survey, we actually set up some parameters. I don't have it off the top of my head, but we provided areas within the community divided by some of the main streets that are included within the community. I believe it was south of 75th Street, though. This chart that we're showing here shows the comparison when we look at those 3 scenarios that were presented as far as willingness to pay, the responses that we received from both the public survey as well as the random sample survey. Again, here in the middle, multi-purpose activity center with an indoor pool. I mentioned before from the random sample, 48% were yes, that they would support that type of facility and a potential bond referendum that would be needed to fund that. With the public survey, we had 72%. In both of the surveys that were conducted, the facility that included the indoor aquatics received the highest amount of responses in support for that type of expense. When we look at comparing the public and the random survey, and we look at unmet facility needs, where we saw some consistencies as well was in the area of the indoor aquatics. You can see the random sample represented by the red bars, and the blue is the public sample. These are the areas where we received the highest number of responses, to where respondents in both surveys felt that these types of amenities in the community were not being met. With the assessment, we also did a space analysis. So here again, this is looking at the district's current facilities, assessing how they're utilized and evaluating capacity. Fort Hill Activity Center, being our main facility, has high usage year-round. So in working with Pros Consulting, and they do this type of work throughout the country and look at facilities, a 70% industry benchmark is used, as far as that is a good amount or good percentage to be able to reference when it comes to facility use and maximizing overall use of facility without putting too much wear and tear on the facility, on staff, so on. Most activities that have usage are at or above that 70% here at the Fort Hill Activity Center. We have very limited capacity to take on additional programming. Fort Hill cannot meet the current or the growing demand for indoor recreation. We're seeing that with some of our waitlisted programs and participation within group fitness, as well as the open gyms and the track use. We are constrained with the limited space of the existing site. So there's no major interior renovations that could take place here without additional capacity or displacing one of the other major activities that already occurs within this building. And then, as I mentioned before, waitlist management is a priority for many of the programs that take place at Fort Hill. As we look at the Rubin Center, some of the key findings there, that facility, a very different type of facility. Fort Hill has larger, more active spaces. The Rubin Center, located closer to downtown Naperville, has more of the classroom type spaces. The upper level of the facility is used primarily for senior programming during the course of the day. The lower level includes a number of preschool classes as well as our dance programs. And we're at about a 40% use on average throughout the week. Now, with that, we have some logistical challenges, and this is something that we heard from speaking with residents during the stakeholder meetings, focus groups, so on, and that is really around some of the challenges with parking around the Riverwalk Community Center. We spoke with actually some families who avoid registering for programs at the Riverwalk Community Center because of just some of the parking and the challenges with being in its present location. In working through this assessment and with pros, there's some thoughts as far as looking at enhancements, possibly maximizing the space utilization, creating more flexible spaces, and just reimagining how we use the facility. So that's something that our staff, as we work to implement some of the recommendations that we're going to be looking at on a much higher level. So in conclusion, there's a number of recommendations within the report for efficiencies in how to utilize some of our existing spaces. Certainly considering resident input was a big part of this assessment, as well as the need for a potential facility. When we look at this, we really have four main areas that have come to light for the Park District to focus on for the future. The first is determining how to address the community's strong demand for indoor aquatics. That is something that we heard consistently throughout the public engagement, not only through the surveys, but again, through all of those other touch points that we had with the community. Prioritizing the expansion for indoor recreation in South Naperville, beyond the small leased areas that we have at the 95th Street Community Center currently. Recognizing that indoor recreation programming need to evolve and adapt as our community grows, as well as trends change, but also to address the increasingly diverse population here in the community. And then understanding that the older population will continue that trend of aging in place, and that we need to focus on providing a wider variety of fitness and wellness programs for older adults. So where do we go from here? What next steps? The first would be the adoption of the Indoor Recreation Space Needs Assessment report at an upcoming Park Board meeting. So we would likely bring that to the board for December 12th for consideration. Implementing a number of recommendations for increased efficiencies at existing facilities, how we schedule facilities, what programs are taking place within specific spaces. Are there opportunities to modify some of the existing spaces that we have to be able to handle other types of programming? That's something that our staff will be working from and looking to implement. Further engaging the community cultural groups to gain an insight into recreational needs and further understanding the diversification needed for our program offerings. Evaluating potential changes to the Riverwalk Community Center to increase the utilization at that facility, but understanding that we also have to manage those logistical challenges that come with that space. Engaging community leaders and partners to review the conclusions from this report, and to also explore partnership opportunities to address community indoor recreation needs. Looking at confirming options for the location of any future indoor recreation space and refine those proposed amenities, what would be included within that based on not only the assessment results, but additional community involvement as part of that. And then preparing options for development of additional indoor recreation space to meet those needs through potential partnerships, or a combination of partnerships and or the community support of a future bond referendum. Again, this is something to where, as an organization, to provide additional new indoor recreation space, we would need to go out to the community and get support for that. So, and with that, I'll open it up to any comments or questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Executive Director Wilson and Director Coates. Commissioner Janner, would you like to make a comment?
Sure. First of all, very well done here. Eric, it seems like the community is saying hey, we want something with aquatics, activity center, south. That's the common themes we're all seeing. What location, I mean, if we were going to zero in on something, the obvious to me seems to be the Frontier Sports Complex area. Is that suitable, enough parking, enough land?
Yes, so as Executive Director Wilson mentioned, as part of the next steps in process, we would go back out to the community and have further discussion about what is the best location. We have existing facilities that we can look at, but we know there's other facilities within community that may also fit. So we think there's a process and a progression in evaluating which sites might be best for that.
So you're basically saying too soon to make a judgment on that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then Brad, since there's members of the public here, it seems to me the only way to do something like this would be to do a bond referendum and get the community to say, yes, we're in. And I know you're shaking your head yes. Can you just explain the process, especially for members of the public, you know, what that would entail? What exactly does that mean? Anybody that lives in 204 knows 204 just had a referendum on the ballot. District 200 just had a referendum. Talk a little bit about what that would entail, the timing, and what that process would look like.
Yeah, there would still be quite a bit of work to do prior to getting to that point. You know, as I mentioned before, I think first it's important for us to engage with community partners to share what we've learned, what we've heard, talk through various options that might be available for potential partnerships to do something in the future. And then also really begin to refine, you know, what locations are possibilities. Exactly what types of amenities would be included within a facility and what would be proposed so that we can really understand further what those costs are. Right now, in the scenarios that we provided, those were scenarios based on some square footage and some thoughts as to if we included those types of spaces, what those estimates might be. We would need to really refine that further. And we would also look to involve the community more in really honing in on what those amenities would be. Ultimately, then, it would be a question that would come back to the board as to whether or not the board would want to move forward and place a question out to the community about developing indoor space. So, you know, those steps that I outlined up there, that's something that we would look to work on throughout the course of next year, and then, you know, present some recommendations or thoughts to the board to then be able to take action and potentially look at a referendum sometime beyond that.
Go ahead, Commissioner Jackson.
A comment I have, not talking about aquatics or water, but talking about anything else like indoor soccer, indoor gymnastics. One thing I really like us to think about is instead of building new buildings, leasing space if possible. Like, for example, in that warehouse across the street, a couple of years ago, there was a private gymnastics facility there that was pretty nice a few years ago. So it's, you know, it's feasible to do that, to have an indoor gymnastics facility in a warehouse that got across the street. You'd avoid the capital cost, you'd avoid the land acquisition headache, the interest rate risk and all that. So I just like to think about that if we can, about leasing existing space for indoor recreation, you know, instead of building new buildings. I think that considered.
And that would be part of, as we look at confirming all potential locations for something like that, not only looking at current park district locations where we may have land that could be developed, but also what else is out in the community. Are there areas that are not currently owned by the park district that might be available? Or, as you mentioned, are there other facilities that through some type of renovation or different use might be able to accommodate? So that would be part of, again, looking at just holistically what is out there and what might be able to satisfy some of these needs.
Commissioner Thompson? Yeah, I just want to, first of all, thank you guys for this incredible presentation and the amount of work that went into it. I can definitely see all the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted. You guys really dove into looking at what the community needed and what the community wanted. And I also appreciate the fact that with each decision that I've found that the staff makes, you guys do check in with the community, and you're looking at not just the present community, but the future community as well. And that's one of the big things that I took away with this, from this, was the fact that we're looking to the future and trying to decide what direction Naperville wants to go, and looking at the different growing populations, is something that I think is really, really important. With all that being said, too, I just want to commend you for looking for different avenues of revenue, because I know, nobody wants their taxes to be increased, but I feel like the members of the staff are very good stewards of tax dollars. You guys make an effort to make sure that each tax dollar goes directly back to the community, and this is a huge example of that mission and that idea. And with all that too, looking to grants, looking to business partnerships to be able to provide this indoor space that Naperville very clearly is saying we want and we need. And for me, like, just looking at the fact that people are willing to pay that extra to be able to have these amenities is huge. And I was not expecting that. I was not expecting to see that dramatic of response for that. So just wanted to throw those thoughts out there, and just encourage you guys to continue being good stewards of the tax dollars, and then also looking for those revenues that you guys always seem to find, the grants, the partnerships, and everything. It's just so impressive and so very much appreciated by the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other questions or comments? No? All right. I'll just point out some interesting things I saw. This Zumba caught my eye. But more seriously, the fact that 1,540 residents voluntarily took this survey. They didn't get postcards. But that number just blows my mind. And it shows that our community is really engaged with the Park District and sees us as a value partner. The other slide that really jumped at me was the willingness to pay. 75% of respondents are either unsure or yes about willingness to pay significant amounts per year, at 60 to 85 per year on average over 20 years. To me, that shows that our residents value what we are offering and trust us with this money to provide quality, important amenities, and that we have an important role in the community, and it's good use of the tax dollars. The other, it's not in this little thing, but the 70% facility usage that you mentioned, that's like a national, and we're above that, right? Fort Hill.
Fort Hill is above that in all areas throughout the year. And
we've seen our usage across the board, golf, Fort Hill, programs, and you mentioned specifically wear and tear on equipment and things like that. It's 70% is ideal. The cost of maintaining what we have when we are servicing levels that are higher than ever before. I just think that's an important thing that we need to keep in mind when we look at the value of the community. But this willingness to pay, I think, especially going over this tonight, is helpful to consider. So I'm really excited about the path forward. I'm really excited about how many residents engaged with us. I know people are here tonight. We've got emails about this. And I think this is the reason a lot of us here on the board is to hear the community, listen to and respect their wishes, and make the best amenities possible. So thank you, staff, for all the work you put into this. And I think it's going to be fun year working on it. Awesome. If there's no other comments, we can move on to the next.
I just had a question real quick, actually.
Yeah,
when we're projecting out the possible cost, the $60 to $85 a month, are we doing it amortized to tell people, like, look, this is going to be $5 a month for a facility? So how do we present that? Do we present that dollar figure to them when they're talking about willingness to pay? And that sort of stuff?
we presented in those three scenarios a dollar figure for the average household as to the increase in what that could be if there was a bond referendum to support each one of those scenarios over the course of 20 years. And the facility costs that were estimated, we worked very closely with Williams Architects, who they were utilizing actual bid pricing that they were seeing in the industry and in the area for what the costs are associated with facilities. And one thing I want to mention is some residents may ask, the Park District was able to build Fort Hill without having to go to referendum, and we were able to do that through a variety of means. Grants. We received a grant for the facility, as well as use of non-referendum bonds, capital that we had available. But what we have seen within the industry is the overall costs for facilities, construction costs over the last 5 years or so has increased significantly. Fort Hill would cost twice as much today to build as what it was in 2016. And so that's one of the reasons, as we talk about the need to go out to the community for that support for new indoor spaces, is some of the rising costs that we've seen.
But even then, as we're looking at these numbers, you're talking about a monthly $5 to $7 cost, like a cup of coffee, to build a facility. for the average taxpayer?
For the average taxpayer, in the scenario that was presented for the Fort Hill plus indoor aquatics was about $85 per year over 20 years for the average homeowner.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for all the work everybody's put into this report and tonight's presentation. Let's move on to the agreement with Naperville Little League Baseball for ball field improvements at Nike Sports Complex.
On April 5th of this year, Naperville Little League Baseball, also known as NLLB, presented the Naperville Park District with a letter identifying that the NLLB board approved a generous $200,000 donation to the Naperville Park District to support ball field improvements at Nike Sports Complex. The purpose of the donation is to assist with the cost to transition fields 1 and 3 at Nike Sports Complex to synthetic turf infields as part of a larger site improvement project scheduled for design and permitting in 2025 and development in 2026 and 2027. The transition to synthetic turf infields at these field locations will improve the playability of the fields and provide a consistent playing surface, reduce rainouts caused by weather, and minimize ball field preparation needed for games, in addition to benefiting residents who play within the Naperville Little League baseball program. The synthetic turf infields will also be available for drop-in play, as well as for use by Park District, Western DuPage Special Recreation Association, and other community programs. The intent is to present a final draft of the agreement for the board's consideration at an upcoming meeting.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And to the members of the public that are here, we would love for you to stay. If you're interested in the rest, we will not be offended, I know. So Commissioner Janner suggested, so it's up to you. But if, all right, no pressure either. All right, thank you, Director Schutz. Any questions on the Little League fields? No? All right, then Commissioners Park Irrigation Pump Station Replacement.
A contract for this project is expected to be presented for approval at a board meeting in January of 2025. The full scope of work for this project includes replacement of the pump station, construction of a new pump house, and redevelopment of the immediate area on and around the existing pump station to alleviate drainage issues and to allow staff better access for operations, maintenance, and repair of the system that serves multi-purpose athletic turf fields at Commissioners Park. The contract being discussed will be for the pump station itself. Due to an anticipated long lead time for the pump station at the specialization with this scope of work, it is being bid separately for the pump house and site work. It is anticipated that a contract for the pump house and site work will be presented to the board for approval during the first quarter of 2025. Pending contract approval, work is scheduled to begin in spring with the intent of having the pump station operational by the summer of 2025.
Dr. Schutz?
Thank you.
All right, next up is Personnel Policy Review.
Good evening. Included in the November 8th weekly packet were track changes versions of personnel and risk management policies that will come before you for consideration at the December 12th board meeting. Traditionally, policy updates are brought before the board in the February or March timeframe. However, some of the proposed changes line nicely with a January 1 effective date for implementation purposes. You may still see some updates early next year as legal is in the midst of reviewing the district's personnel policies. The packet you received included 6 updated personnel policies, 2 new policies, and 2 updated risk management policies. The cover memo provided a summary of the policy changes, and the updates really fall into 2 categories: updates to address operational matters and updates that were a result of the 2024 total compensation analysis. The 2 new policies are the Personal Boundaries Policy and Generative AI Use Policy. The Personal Boundaries Policy, modeled after a policy implemented by WDSRA, details expectations when staff or volunteers are interacting with minors and vulnerable adults. With the growing use of AI, the Generative AI Policy establishes acceptable use of AI, prohibited use of AI, and AI use guidelines at the district. The updates to the risk management plan policies were really cleanup type changes, the most notable being the risk management plan, which was updated to reflect current PDERMA coverage, and the risk management review, which replaced and is different from the loss control review we went through in previous years. So I'm happy to take any questions about the policies.
Any questions? Oh, I appreciate, oh, go ahead.
No, I just probably what you're about to say. I'm very appreciative of the time and the effort and the thought put into this. Bringing us in line we had talked, you had mentioned earlier about how much work has been put into keeping, retaining, and attracting employees. We talked about it in our last strategic planning session, and these very policies that we're doing is exactly what needs to be done to continue that hard work that's already been done. So I'm really proud of these changes, to be honest. Anything that we can do to make this a more inclusive and more attractive organization to work at I think it's great, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. We talk a lot about maintaining what we have, but obviously, it takes a lot of staff to make the park district work. So I appreciate the proactive personnel to make hopefully it a better place to work. So thanks.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Golf carts for Springbrook Golf Course. Really excited for this one.
Good evening. At the September 10th, 2024 Park and Recreation Committee meeting, staff discussed with the committee the need for updating and replacing the golf cart fleet at Springbrook Golf Course, basically due to the fleet's age and wear and tear from several seasons of heavy use. With the possible replacement of the entire fleet, it was determined that this was an excellent opportunity to investigate the benefits of upgrading the fleet to an all-electric fleet. Golf and Finance completed a thorough review of the costs and benefits of gas versus electric carts, and also the options of leasing versus purchasing. It was determined the electric carts will provide lower overall operating costs. They will require less maintenance and provide an improved customer service or customer experience for our patrons at the golf courses. It's also going to align with our district core values. It was also determined that purchasing the carts would be overall a lower cost than leasing. And it's going to provide future flexibility for acquiring replacement carts and allow the district to retain the excellent resale value we see from our golf carts. So staff right now is currently requesting proposals for acquiring 60 new golf carts at Springbrook Golf Course. These would be electric. And we expect to provide for the board's consideration at a future board meeting a contract for that purchase. If it's approved, the expectation would be these new carts would be available by April of next year for the 2025 golf season at Springbrook Golf Course. Any questions?
I know we talked about this in the Parks and Rec, but for the full board, can you just let us know what infrastructure changes would need to happen to be able to charge all these, if any?
Yeah, we are going to be having to make some upgrades in the basement at Springbrook Golf Course. We're going to have to do some minor electrical updates. I got actually the next update I have kind of will detail all those.
Basically, they charge overnight and then they're good to go first thing in the morning, and they pretty
Correct.
much last most of the day, or they need to recharge during the day?
No, these will be lithium battery golf carts, so we should be able to get upwards of 36 to 54 holes a day out of these golf carts. So one charge overnight, the golf cart would be good for 2 to 3 rounds.
That's right. Yeah, very positive. These are great.
Yeah, excellent.
Anyone else? Commissioner Ancir.
No, I think it's great. We've talked about this a little bit in the Parks and Rec meeting, but yeah, I mean, you did a really wonderful cost net benefit analysis, of course, lining and keeping in line with our commitment to environmental stewardship. So I think this is a fantastic move. So thanks again for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for your work on it. All right. Next item, if there's more.
Yes, earlier this year, we had an engineer out at the golf courses. He was contracted to perform an electrical study of Springbrook Golf Course's clubhouse, basically to determine the feasibility of converting our golf carts fleet to all electric. The review determined that the existing electrical service in the clubhouse has adequate capacity to handle the charging loads of a new electric golf cart fleet, and that the main distribution panel contained enough spare circuit breakers for all these carts. However, in order to accommodate all the charging ports for the new electric golf carts, a new branch circuit breaker panel and wiring to the charging ports will need to be installed. These updates will be bid later this month, and with the expectation a contract will be presented to the board for approval at a future board meeting. We have $55,000 allocated for this project in the proposed 2025 capital budget, and pending contract approval, the work would be scheduled to complete before the end of March.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions on that item? All right, thank you. Golf clubhouse bathroom renovations.
Yes, thank you. As part of the proposed 2025 capital budget, funds have been appropriated for the renovation of the restrooms at both golf course clubhouses. This project is intended to provide needed updates to the infrastructures of the restrooms, improving both the functionality of the fixtures and overall appearance of the facilities. The scope of the work at both clubhouses includes remodeling of both the men's and women's bathrooms, and that includes regrouting of all tile, replacement of all countertops, updating plumbing fixtures, new light fixtures, and other miscellaneous work. To accomplish this, the staff is recommending the contract for this project be awarded to Roby Construction, and that'd be using the City of Naperville's cooperative job order contract. The City of Naperville awarded a cooperative job order contract to Roby, which allows its use by other jurisdictions, including the Park District, and pursuant to Illinois 30 ILCS 525. The city initially awarded the job ordering contract services to Roby in 2019 and has since awarded 2 extensions to this contract. The city has used Roby Construction for several projects, and the district has previously used Roby Construction for updates to the exterior bathrooms at Springbrook Golf Course with excellent results. The proposed contract using the cooperative job order totals $125,471. That's for both clubhouses combined. We had $190,000 in the proposed 2025 capital budget for this project. Staff expects to provide to the board for the board's consideration a contract in December, and if approved, that would allow work to begin in January. This would provide enough time to have the work completed for this project before the golf course is opened in March. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Commissioner Janner, do you have a question?
Just a comment, I mean, great job. How many rounds did we say? 94,000 or whatever?
We are presently just over 90,000 rounds. for the
So,
year.
I mean, that's a 20-year high. That's a tremendous amount of rounds going through the golf course, 20-year high, if that was sort of glossed over during the earlier presentation. So for me, these projects are much easier to green light when we have so much traffic, so many residents using the golf course. So
Absolutely.
this is an easy one. A great job with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, all right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Carlson. All right, this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody has a nice, safe holiday. Our next regular meeting of the Park Board of Commissioners is December 12th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here at Fort Hill Activity Center.
Move to adjourn to executive session to discuss land acquisition per section 2C5, semi-annual review of executive session minutes per section 2C21, and personnel per section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Ruffing?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansier?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacks?
Yes.
Commissioner Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Risvold?
Yes.
President Gibson?
Yes, all right, thank you all. Thanks for being here.